I am a full-time professor at Industrial Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, and it's Marmara University. At the same time, I have been now assigned as Deputy General Manager for Research and Development at Technopark Istanbul. It is very near to, Sabiha Gökçen Airport. I'm the Marmara Chain founder. It's been working for 3 years. I worked as CIO at Turkish Aerospace Industry 2 years ago. I'm a trades trainer and ERP systems architect since 1997, I can say. Okay, so let me just go into subject. There is a story, a very famous story on internet. I think many people know about this. There's a town where there is no cash money. So in the town, everyone is in debt to each other. So everyone has lack of money. So since they have no money, cash, they have difficulty in running the economy. So there's a hotel in the town, one hotel, and there's one tourist coming to hotel, and she wants to stay in the hotel. She says she will be staying if she likes. So she just leaves the counter 100 USD because hotel keeper is in debt to butcher. He rushes immediately and pays for 100. So his debt is cleared. Butcher has also debt to farmer, so he immediately rushes to farmer. So he rushes to farmer, and then he pays for debt. He is in debt to fuel supplier, the farmer, and then he pays for debt. He is also in debt to transporters. 100, so he clears the debt as well. Transporter has debt to the hotel. Actually, he returns back that, and then now money is in hotel now. In the meantime, the tourist says, "I didn't like the hotel," and then so she wants to leave. She takes the money and goes away. You see, this is very famous history. Story under amusing brain teaser. It is shared. You can find on internet. So this is very famous in Turkey, in many places all around the world. You can find this. Who benefited from this? It is obvious. No one earned anything. However, the whole town is now without debt and looks to future with a lot of optimism. So you can find here. Now, I will give some thoughts about money and credit shortly. I define money as piece of information showing the right to consume. This is very simple explanation. I try to make it simple. What about the credit? Credit is actually temporary information, or temporary value you can call. Credit to show the right to consume based on a promise to pay in the future time on mutual agreement in verbal or written form. And it requires most commonly third parties as witnesses. Credit is only temporary money for certain period defined in agreement. So this is a definition. So money is a piece of information, but credit is also information, but it is temporary. By the way, lending is not credit, since the information or money in lending is already available. Because we said, temporary information of the credit, that feature of that credit, it is actually existing already. So it is not a real credit. So what happens when somebody goes to somewhere and, for example, wants to make borrowing? In that case, if the person has already the money, the information, he or she is lending, not creating the money. So it is in the credit, actually it is different. Credit information is created temporarily until the maturity date. And once it is paid with the future money, the original information for credit is destroyed. This is very important. So credit actually is, as we said, temporary information. So it does not exist actually, and it happens through that credit creation operation. Now let us check with the banks, how banks work actually. This is of course not known by most of majority of the people. They think that banks actually, first of all, collect the deposits from people and then make lending. So somebody goes to a bank and then when they borrow the money, they think that, or many people think that the banks get those money from other people and lend it. No, it's not the case. Banks do not lend money. Instead, they create both credit. We call credit as temporary information, temporary money, and deposit for the debtor. So the banks create both credit and deposit. Once the credit is paid back to bank in future, the original credit is destroyed. This is very important. So the original money is temporarily created, but the deposit remains in the economy. So credit is created, deposit remains in the economy. So the money is originally there. So it is just for temporary time. The balance of economy is destroyed because of actually due to interest or riba, we call it, as you know. So if there is no, for example, riba, in that case, the balance will be maintained mathematically, of course. We don't talk about the inflation due to actually creation of this money easily by the banks. It causes some kind of inflation. We call it inflation. There's supply and demand. We call it demand inflation. Demand inflation is because banks create money in a central place. Peer-to-peer credits, they happen in forms of promissory notes. We call it senet. It is very widely used in Turkey, and I am sure it is used in many parts of the world. We call it senet. There are many different kinds of senets, of course. We call them cambio and others. Even selam senets are a different case, but they are even senets. Postage checks. Postage checks are very common in Turkey. Nearly half of actually economy in Turkey runs with the postage checks. They are real credits because they happen in the actually real economy during shopping. Vast majority of credits in modern economies, especially in the West, are banking credits. But in our countries, I think it is also similar in many different places. Like in India, yeah, senet, yeah, in Arabic, it is actually it's more than 1,000 years ago. For example, salam senet you can find in Bukhari and in other sources. So even Sahabe, were using senets. We can go back to that time. So senets are very common in many countries, and it is also known in the West. So let me say talk about DeFi projects. Most DeFi projects are based on lending and not credits. So this is one thing. This is so when we talk about DeFi projects, they are actually a wrong perception of banking because banks, as we said, create both credit and deposit. They do not lend actually something which is existing. They create something for temporary. Credits, so lending and not credits, since money in credit form is created and not borrowed from somebody else. By the way, you know a lot about the DeFi projects. There's, for example, over-collateralization and other things. Most of them are based on over-collateralization because credit requires trust, and they are not trust-based. Blockchains, as you know, are not trust-based. Trust cannot be solved on trustless mechanism. That is why we need to embed or integrate somehow a trust mechanism into this one. That is why, as you know, the longest ayah in Quran is related to, in Baqarah, related to this debt and debt settlement things. So we need to have witnesses, 2 witnesses at least, something like that. Now, so we know about the credits. It is a real story with postage checks as actually analog blockchain on papers. I don't know in your countries how much you are using, for example, the checks as postage checks. But in UK, for example, I lived in there for 6 years. They don't use it like that. In Canada, for example, they use the checks as postage checks. What happens? Normally, checks are payment devices. But when you write a future date on the checks, when we need in shopping, for example, suppose I want to buy something from the market for 10 months, let me say, I buy a television. When I write a promissory note, a senet, or a postage check, it is same. I create actually credit, same as banks, for example, here. So banks create credit, I create credit with a senet or a postage check. It is actually in Turkey nearly 300 billion USD, and in India more than 500 or 600 billion USD are in form of postage checks only. Of course, there are also senets where we cannot have statistics. For example, in Turkey, they have statistics for senet. We call it the risk center. And because checks actually issued by using the checkbooks given by the banks, but promissory notes, of course, senets are very free. You know, you can just create a senet promissory note on your computer, for example, or on a paper, and then you can just create for that time. Now, this is what is the greatest problem with the checks or senets? Of course, it is bouncing with the checks, and it is very common problem. So we need to look at the numbers. What is the number? For example, when we look at this number in Turkey, this is I kept it until 2018. I didn't update it. What is that? For example, presented checks over GDP, it is 24 point something, 25%. So the total value on the checks is as much as, you see, 25% of GDP, Turkish GDP. What about return checks? They present and to the, of course, banks, and the amount that is not paid, settled, is around 3%. Of course, if you look at the town story, you know, in the town story, what happens? There's 100 USD dollar, for example, originally created by the tourist when giving to when making payment to hotel, you know, keeper. It is only $100, but if it is in the economy circulating 5 times, so you can just like money multiplication, you know, explain in banking things or in economies. 5 times 100 becomes 500 USD. So we expect that this is not 25% in Turkey, because we call it endorsement, of course. We call them giranta. I don't know in Arabic the name of that, but we call in Turkey giranta, I think coming from Farsi language, as far as I know. So this is the amount in Turkey. What about India, for example? The amount of checks, it is, you see, as much as 42%. It is reducing, of course. In 2017, it is 49%. The return checks, the amount of non-payments, non-redemption, is as much as 5%. In Turkey nowadays, I checked for last year, it is less than 2%. So what is the thing? You know, it is peer-to-peer credit happening on the papers as checks or something. So we thought we are working on this problem since 2016, and we said, if we can put all these things, you know, promissory notes, checks onto blockchain, because blockchain has some kind of self-finance mechanism, like you have block rewards, for example, as in Bitcoin or Ethereum. Suppose you are having for collateralization, you know, the block rewards. if you use the block rewards for partial, we call it collateralization, somehow, if you embed or integrate trust-based system that we have already with paper checks and promissory notes, you can easily solve this problem. Why? Because it is only 5% in India and now 2% something in Turkey. I think in your country also you are using, because we have this similar culture. So post-dated checks and promissory notes, senates are very powerful credit creation tools already available as manual form, of course, in economy. Senates do not circulate, endorse like in checks, but in Turkey, we found, for example, I found myself, I checked with the business people, some of the checks even have at least 12 names, for example, on that. As I found that the 12 names written on the check, paper, sometimes because the check itself doesn't have enough, they just make endorsement at the back of the check. The paper is not enough, so they just find a blank sheet paper and then they continue that. You see, they just simply attach a blank paper to continue for the endorsements. So it is very, so it is circulated by endorsement. So this is a thing. So we call it actually a credit loop. So this is what we call credit loop. With the credit loop, you can create, anyone can create money. Who are the actors? We need to define actors. Simply, the first one who initiates this process is called issuer. Like if you have a check, for example, you write any number on it, of course, as long as it is accepted by the first person. Who is that? We call it holder, hamil. It is hamil in Turkish. It is coming from Arabic, I think. The one who bears or holds the check. So in the first case, the number 2 is called hamil. Of course, when he or she makes endorsement, the name is changed to Ciranta. Simply means endorser in Turkish. And the last one becomes hamil. So the last note is always hamil. So it can have, like in town story. You remember the town story. The first one, who is that? The tourist. Tourist is the issuer of the credit, and the hotel owner is the first one. The second one, hamil, bearer of the check. And then when he transfers to butcher, butcher becomes hamil, and the hotel owner becomes endorser. So this is simply a credit loop. We have a blockchain now, Marmara chain. It is working, for example, and for 3 years, nearly 3 years. On 17th of January, it will be 3 years. So we have 100% collateralization. It is trustless version. Why? Because we have 100% collateralization. We don't need to have over collateralization because there is no interest in the system. There's no riba. What happens now? Suppose you are creating something to call it credit, because credit is temporary money. How do we call it really credit? Or why do you need to have something instead of using as cash? Why do you lock into the blockchain? We block in blockchain. We replaced here, Ethereum structure. In the Ethereum, you have staking. 3x. We have staking, 2 kinds of staking here. We put it actually 3 years ago. We integrated that into credit loop process. So if instead of cash, for example, you are buying from someone, endorser, from a market, for example, owner, both 1 and 2, nodes 1 and 2 are, we call it in credit loop. So both are sharing the same credit. What happens? 50% of the credit works, for the first issuer. Second half, 50% is working for the endorser. Meaning, together they earn the rewards, block rewards. We actually we have rewritten Bitcoin by making 75% of the block rewarding structure. It's a coin, it's not a token. We make the blockchain rewards, to be, earned through POS, proof of stake, like in Ethereum or Solana or other, chains which are using a staking mechanism. So why do we use this one? Because 100% collateralization. Okay, there's no, riba or interest here. Instead, you need to have some incentive for the people, for the buyer and for the seller. It is actually block rewards. So if you want to earn block rewards, you have to use it in, this process. Of course, this is not real credit, we can say, but there is second version. This phase 2, we call it phase 1 is working now. In the second version, we have trust-based version. We call it partial collateralization. So there are two additional actors. Who are they? One is avalis. We call it is coming from, I think, Arabic again. In our language, we call it aval. Aval means friendship or supporting, or we call it kefil. Kefil in Arabic as well. So in this one, actually, when you are creating, this is real credit, credit creation. So suppose you are making buying for $100, like in a town story. What happens here? You don't have 100, of course. You have only 10% of that. What is that? It is 10%. So 10. You have only $10. $90 are created in this process. Well, of course, for 100, it is not that much. But suppose you have like 100,000. USD to be created as credit, temporary information, we call it, credit is temporary information we define. So what happens? Endorser, or in the first case, it is Hamil, of course. Hamil is the seller. He sells carpet, for example, or television to issuer. Issuer just creates a check or, for example, promissory note, senet. In this creation, he needs to be supported by two parties. One is avalist. Any number, it may be any number. So, of course, itself, issuer himself or herself has to, lock into blockchain 10% of the credit. What is that? Like it is 10,000 USD. He needs to lock as much as 1,000 to system as partial collateralization. If Hamil, the second note, of course, wants initial additional, for example, support, then he can put as much as here possible from the avalist. Well, of course, it doesn't end with that. We need to have decentralized community. It is like, there are witnesses in Quran, 2 persons or more than 2 persons. We call it escrow. Escrow, like I am at Marmara University. So Marmara University has to support me in this credit process. If at the end I cannot pay for this credit, of course it may be a participation bank, we call it in Turkey, or any other bank, or any other company, any other civil organization, for example, and non-profit organization or something. Vakıf, for example. Vakıf is very common in Turkey. So you need to put escrow at the end. Why? Because escrow adds here the trust component. As we said, credits are actually needing trust. Why? Because blockchain is trustless. You cannot solve on blockchain the trust need. So this escrow is merged with the system. So at the end, what happens? For example, it is posted check or promissory note put onto blockchain. What happens if the payment is not settled at the end? By whom? By one. To whom? To the last node, which we call holder. Then avalist's money, and then issues other locked coins or other assets as digital, of course, form. They are used to clear the debt. If it is not, clear, then endorsers, all endorsers. There might be as much as 1,000 nodes in our system. So it will be settled. But even if that is not settled by our lists and other, we call it a credit loop layer, that escrow at the final end says, okay, of course, they make some kind of collateralization agreement or anything. As I said, I am from Marmara University, so Marmara University can have certain limitations on me to have this debt settled. So this is a blockchain thing. We have a paper with James Lee from Komodo blockchain platform. The name of that, Marmara Credit Loops, a blockchain solution to non-redemption problem in post-dated checks. Of course, you can have similarly, this is just to share in an open source format, but you can, of course, do this one. And we have, as we said, phase 1 is working now well. We don't need any collateralization. At the moment, we are trying to create the escrows. So we have business people, companies and others who will be participating in phase 2. They will be trust points. Of course, this system, we want to have this system as international solution. So for example, in different countries, you can be trust points, escrow points there to be in the process. So we actually, I want to finish my talk now. We want to finish, we want to do all these credit operations, which is currently done by a banking system with the trust edition of decentralized bodies, decentralized communities, we call it. Of course, it has all, we will be having the second paper soon to explain phase 2, especially in more details. But this is what I can tell with this. Of course, this is just to give as case study. We say that, you know, people when they are you know, providing solutions with DeFi projects, I want all of them that DeFi projects currently actually built by the Western idea, I can say, and in that Western idea, the banking actually is misunderstood. So that misunderstanding is reflected in DeFi projects, and simply as I will finish my talk, lending is not same as credit creation. We need to have credit creation, and let me say 90% of the money, as you know, in the world is created through credit by the banks. Of course, if there is no bank involved, even people, when they use money, especially in form of credit, in form of, you know, what we call temporary information, temporary money, then we do it. In our culture, it is existing, and we can simply put onto blockchain, and then there may be no interest because it is working interest-free. It is a riba-free economy, I can say, and this might be, this problem may be solved. So we don't need to pay for the money credited by the banks in any form of usury, you know, riba. That is the end of my talk. Thank you very much. I hope I could, you know, explain things. The things I explained, as I said, with the case. But in my belief, in the future, blockchain will, if blockchain is used to solve credit creation problem, so it will be a new second revolution by the blockchain. You know, Bitcoin is the first revolution, but it is, you know, actually similar to gold creation. So Bitcoin, for example, or similar coins can be described as the money, the gold which can be actually transferred through internet, because it is actually the mining and other staking mechanism. They are very similar to you know, gold mining, physical gold mining process. But credit creation and you know, circulation needs to be solved on internet, and this can be done on international level together. Thanks very much.